In 2007, I helped a father and son buy a home that they identified. I made $18,000 for way less than 10 hours worth of work. I've heard you talk about like all of your sort of tactical sales stuff, and I had none of that.
Welcome back, Novello Nation, to another episode of the Aaron Novello podcast. We have with us a very special human being. He's somebody who's really done everything within the real estate space. Not only did he produce at record kind of volume, very, very high volume in terms of transactions and GCI, he also ran a really tight ship in terms of profitability. He turned that into a coaching company, teaching people how to scale. And now he's one of the top rev share earners with EXP in the company, growing it very fast and very quickly. He is a senior partner of mine, the one and only Mr. Lars Hedenborg. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing awesome. And I'll add to the intro. You know, you said I've done everything I've also made every mistake you could possibly make, you know, so yeah. I think there are more lessons as we unpack the journey, you know, today. I think there's more lessons in the things I can help, you know, others that are trying to make the ascension to business ownership, the mistakes they can avoid along the way. But yeah, man, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of the things, like, you know, now that I'm in proximity with you, that you've really helped me with, and I really appreciate, is just your kind of insight, because you've kind of done it, been there, done it, and you can point things out along that journey. So I guess for those out there, those agents who kind of don't know who you are and don't know kind of the journey, if you could quickly walk through your kind of evolution in real estate, from kind of individual agent doing units and selling real estate to kind of business owner, and then we'll discuss kind of the journey after that.
Yeah, awesome. So I got into real estate 3 months before the big shift hit my market, major metro market. June 2007 is when our inventory shot straight through the roof, right? You know, as the Great Recession was hitting. You know, if you were in real estate at that time, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I was just a solo agent. My first 10 months in the business, I sold 27 homes instantly, evenings and weekends. I was married in 2006. You know, Anders, who now is just started to drive, was just born when I was getting into real estate. So my wife has pictures of me, like, you know, on the phone, feeding him a bottle and like totally not present as a dad. So my motivation for figuring this industry out, you know, making a ton of money, but not giving away my entire life in the process, was really, I was instantly like out of bounds on the hours I was working. And even when I was with, you know, my new bride and my son, and then a couple miscarriages, and then we had our second child in April 2010. But I did 27 sides, then 44 sides in my first full year, then 58, 118, 178, and then 248 in 2012. And that year I sold one of those homes on a very profitable model. You know, a lot of guys and girls in this industry, I think the girls actually do better than the guys. You know, so I'll just say a lot of guys, literally, they're all about the top line numbers, and there's not a whole lot of profit at the end of the day. So we went to 312 in 2013 and then 453 in 2014. That year I worked like 42 days, you know, and I made almost $1 million in that business. And I launched Real Estate B School the year before, because the journey was really freaking hard. It was hard to figure out like what pieces, you know, what systems could I build so I could hand off certain pieces of the transaction that didn't really require me being involved in it. And that sort of with the backdrop of what do I even like to do? I'm not naturally outgoing. I'm super introverted. I'm not like a natural salesperson. I put myself into those situations because I knew there was a big opportunity to build a legitimate business that served buyers and sellers at a high level. So the game, and then we can kind of unpack it, but the game that I played was just a different game. You know, I didn't want to make $1 gazillion a year. I just wanted to make $1 million a year. I'm like, if I could do that, that would be awesome. But I wanted to work 1,000 hours to do it, which is essentially, do the math on 1,000 hours divided by 50 weeks or so. And it's like 20 hours a week, you know? So not that I did it perfectly, you know, some years I hit it, some years I didn't hit it. Most years I'm not hitting, you know, just the 1,000 hours, including like right now, as hard as I'm working. But it's always been this vision to make as much money as possible in as little time as possible, so that I can have an impact in the areas of life that matter a heck of a lot more than selling the next home. And so,
What I'm aware of is it very much so flies in the face of this like hustle culture that I think as a society, we, kind of buy into, and particularly within the real estate space, because there's a lot of kind of, influence within the space from people that have been influencing it, that have kind of preached this idea of hustle culture. And your mindset was more like, okay, how can I do the most doing the least amount? And I'm aware that in certain environments, they would poo poo that or say it's stupid and dumb. And you're like, that's cool. Like, I want to make these investments in other areas in life. So did that come from more, because I know you have a background like an MBA in business. Did it come from that, like kind of building businesses or thinking like a business owner right out of the gate? Or did it come from more, you started to facilitate real estate transactions and you made a personal decision as far as what you value most, like, hey, this is unacceptable to me that traditional success in real estate is 70 hours a week?
yeah, I think it came from, a very chaotic and jacked up childhood where I saw, my mom and dad start a business. They were both hairdressers. My mom divorced my dad when I was 4. I understand alcoholism is an addiction, yet I think he went to drinking because the pressure of showing up in the home and having this failing business. 33 years he was in business and he had nothing to show for it at the end of that business journey. He was the ultimate E-myth, entrepreneurial myth. And so I think that was the backdrop. I refused to fail as a husband and a father. So that was like, I've got to figure this out. And at the same time, I was like majorly motivated to make a ton of money because I didn't have any as a kid. So this unnatural drive to make money and a healthy drive to be a good husband and father, I think those two things collided, and we get paid a ridiculous amount of money to do what we do for the most part. In 2007, I helped a father and son buy a home that they identified. It was in their neighborhood. I showed it to them, and it was a $620,000 home paid out 3%. I made $18,000 for way less than 10 hours worth of work. And I'm like, part of me is like, there's no way this could last. This is like, it felt like I was robbing somebody, so I feel lucky enough to be, I'll be 50 next year, to be at the point where I figured out some of the things. I made a lot of mistakes pretty quickly. I think I'm young to have figured out some things. I think if you're not where you want to be financially, or you're not succeeding in an area of life that's important to you, you have to figure out one or the other. Like, what's going to motivate you? What's going to be the carrot? And then potentially, what's the thing you can think of to do the thing you don't want to do? And, so I use that same experience watching my dad go through a 5-year, essentially he had a stroke in 2009. He died in 2014. I would think of all of the experience, sort of watching him die slowly, essentially, when I didn't want to work out. I'm like, you better get off of your ass and work out right now so you don't do that to your family.
Yeah, I love that. And I appreciate your authenticity. I really do. And your straightforwardness. I know that that's what will resonate with people, And what comes up for me is like this idea, like people can teach you 2 ways of doing, like you can learn in 2 separate ways. One is how to do something. The second is how not to do something. And they're equally as powerful. Like I tell people regularly, like it's unfortunate that people who really screw things up don't do seminars. Like that'd be awesome. Like imagine if there was a guy who's like, hey, I totally screwed up my marriage. Like I'd be in the front row, like, okay, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that, right? Or like I totally screwed up my finances. Like, okay, right? Like my father's still living and I watch him similarly, there's very little leverage in his life. And increasingly his life is getting more like just hard, right? Because he doesn't have that leverage. So it's this really powerful kind of driving force to create more of it. And, I always tell people like if you're stuck, you're usually one relationship away. Like one individual way that can give you a different mindset, a different way of thinking, a different kind of skill. And, and our proximity together, like you've really been helping me with thinking. because I very much so subscribe to that, like hustle hard. Like, I did 100 plus deals a year for like 12 years in a row, 200 deals a year twice with just me and like two assistants and like a couple buyer's agents, listing 150 plus homes a year. And I took pride in kind of being the type of person that could do that day in and day out. And a lot of my identity was kind of tied into it. And you've really been kind of not only putting kind of software, which would be like books and ways of thinking, but also challenging me in a lot of ways to start to unwind that. So how, being that that's so pervasive, right? That hustle kind of mindset and kind of culture in our industry, like how does someone go about really starting to unwind that and think about leverage, think about the things that we're talking about, as far as like, I'm aware in this mastermind group that I run, I asked them like, what do you think is directly correlated with longevity? And they would tell me things like money, and they would tell me things like health. And what was so interesting is Harvard did a longitudinal study for 75 years where they looked at the same people over and over and over again, looked at medical records, interviewed everybody. And the thing that was directly correlated with longevity was the quality of the relationships that they had in their life, which was super interesting. It wasn't status. It wasn't like, their position. It wasn't their title. It was that. So I guess talk a little bit about that, because I'm aware like you're very skilled at doing that, helping people to unwind that thinking.
Yeah. And I want to cover one thing that you covered on, and it's prevalent in our industry, and I think it trips a lot of people up. And then I'll get into the leverage and the mindset around it. It's this comparison trap that we can fall into. And literally today, I got a text from a guy that runs a great business. I know his numbers. It's on the right economic model. He was talking to a guy that who was actually transparent with him. He did 800 transactions either last year or what he'll do this year, and he'll make $24,000. And he's doing production. So it doesn't matter how many, so a solo agent selling 6 to 8 homes a year, on referrals and keeping expenses down is literally going to make more money than someone doing 800 transactions. And we put a guy like that on the stage, on the pedestal, and we're like, man, one day if I could only sell 800 homes. And you know what I mean? It's like complete insanity. So I think it fits into your question. It's you ever see in the horse races, the horses have like those blinders over their eyes. Sure. Yeah. So they can run their race. And so they don't get, spooked out. I guess they get freaked out if they can see like what's going on around them or whatever. I think more people, but let's talk about real estate agents, just need to run their race. Like just decide, be honest with yourself about where you are, where you want to go, 3-year vision or 1-year plan, chunk it down 90 days at a time, weekly and then daily, and then make good decisions every day. But run your own race, right? I think it was Tony Robbins and probably others that say, we overestimate what we could do in a year, but we underestimate what we could do in 10 years or 5 years or 7 years. So we make these grand gestures like, next year I'm going to lose 50 pounds, and then you don't lose 50 pounds. Because it's this grand gesture, and you're not changing who you are. You're just, deciding you're going to push for 90 days and whatever happens. But after the 90 days, you sort of go back to your old ways. So I think it's just running your own race. And for someone that's figured out the money, and they've succeeded at a high level in real estate, you've got to start to figure out like, what are you missing out on, and what regrets are you going to have if you keep running at the pace that you're running at? And that's just not, and we've had conversations before, like really honest conversations, you're not going to be measured. Nobody is going to measure you by the number of homes you sold. Yeah. But I promise your kids are going to measure you when they're in therapy, when they're 30, by like, oh, my dad always chose the listing appointment over me, or whatever crap is going to come out, from our kids. I know I'm jacking my kids up too, so there's no judgment in any of it. But just think about how you want to be remembered. It's a pretty morbid exercise, but I have a life plan where I have essentially, this is going to sound so weird. I don't think I've ever told anyone this, But I have in my mind what I think the most important individual people or groups of people that are important to me today will say about me at my funeral. Really sort of a weird thing to even contemplate, but I want my wife to be able to think this or say this, my kids individually, what they would say, about me, the folks I served at EXP or Real Estate B School or my men's group, my C12 brothers. I had a guy ask me one time, this was on like we do a weekly group call, and it was just like open Q&A or whatever. And he made the comment like, how do you stay so focused when there's so much going on in the world? And I haven't been perfect. I mean, last year's been a little bit of a crap show. I recently just removed a TV from a room that I couldn't get, it got a little bad. So I'm not, oblivious, or I definitely fall into the trap. But instantly I said to him, what I keyed into in that question was, he said, the world. Like, how do you get so much done or stay so on point when there's so much going on in the world? And instantly I thought about like, your world versus the world. Like, there's just stuff going on in the world which we can't impact. We're going to get all stressed out about. It has nothing to do with our marriage, our kids, our financial situation. The next year is going to be the best year in real estate ever, I believe. Because if you just concentrate on your world, your database, your lead sources, the activities, the you versus you in every day, you will just crush it, because all the agents are in the world. They're getting freaked out. We did a market update today, and we dissected the headlines right now about the real estate market versus the reality. So the headline is like 400% increase in foreclosures. That's the headline. But foreclosures went from, let me see if I can remember the number. It's like 200,000 last year. No, it was like 20,000 to 80,000. But when you look at the 80,000 and you look in the last 20 years, it's like 10% of what it has been historically. In a strong market, there's like 700,000 foreclosures a year, and we're at 88,000. The headline is bleeding, and it's just clickbait.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. Having built my business in 2007, 8, 9, during like an actual financial, this is just like a, kind of pullback, but like an actual financial calamity. I know with certainty, because I built 25% year over year, that regardless of what was happening externally, we did no short sales, no REOs. We still, through mindset skills and a proper plan and staying focused, like you're saying, with blinders on, we were able to accomplish what seemed to be things that were unaccomplishable. And what I was taking notes because you are one of the most mission-driven, kind of purpose-driven, impact-driven people that I know. And you keep bringing that to my attention. You keep like putting in front of me like, hey, impact, hey, purpose, hey, mission, right? And I'm curious because I know you did the transition where you were doing the real estate thing, you scaled out of it. Then you made the decision like, okay, well, I can increase my impact by teaching more people how to do this because I want them to have, more kind of time with the things that matter and yet still make meaningful amounts of income, which this business allows us to do. And then not that long ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, I think it is, you made the decision to kind of partner with EXP. So talk a little bit about that transition and how it fits into mission, purpose, and impact.
Yeah. So, I mean, EXP gives us the opportunity just to present a level of community collaboration and freedom that I don't think the industry has seen. So I said no to EXP for more years for twice as many years as I've been in it. So I was like, that's a squirrel. It's a distraction, whatever limiting belief I had around, and it was simply, a better version of the 7 levels of profit share that Gary came up with. But I just had some limiting beliefs around it. But once I saw it and I'm like, holy cow, I can, it took me X number of years to get to the point where I've impacted, X number of agents through Real Estate B School and the ripple effects of that. What if this could give me the ability to impact like thousands of agents? and so it's been 2 years and like 3 months, and 1,500 agents have joined, and I think I've brought on like 45, and they've just invited their friends in, and they've invited their friends in, and I'm able to offer just more value to more people. Some agents are like doing 50,000 GCI, and you have it in you to get to 250,000 GCI. If you could do 50, you could do 250. If you do 250, you can do 1,000,000.
It's interesting because I heard somebody say something recently where he was like, yeah, I think the reason why because people want outsized outcomes. They want the 1%, they want the $1 million, they want the outsized outcome. And he said, I think the reason why people don't produce outsized outcomes is because they dramatically underestimate the volume of activity and the length of time you will have to put out that volume of activity in order to produce the outsized outcome. And I think that's very, very accurate and true. And that's what I hear you saying. And what I wrote down is, as you're talking about all of these distractions, all of these kind of applications, whether they be social, whether they be entertainment, they're all trying to hijack your attention. And the more that they hijack your attention, the more money they make. And they make their products very addicting. Like, it's interesting because we have this conversation in our house, the kids with the screens, but then they're like, Dad, you're on the screen. I'm like, yeah, it's equally as addicting for me. Like, it works on children just like it works on adults, right? So, but by hijacking the attention, you're hijacking like this supercomputer that we have, that if we just focused it like a laser beam in a particular direction, and we play our game, and we put the volume of activity over the time frame that you want and need, you're absolutely correct. Like, and that's been true in my life. Within a decade, you'd be like flabbergasted by where you're at. Like, I'm getting ready to. We're flying out. I'm actually going out to California, and with one of our partners, Jose, we're going to do a live event, and it's going to be a business planning event. And one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to hand out letters that I wrote to myself in 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, and it's wild for me to see like what I thought was a lot at that time in my life. Like the biggest I could think, that number where it's like, wow, dude, like that's wild, because now, like if I did that, that'd be really unacceptable. You know what I mean? So, and that's a testament to what's possible over an extended period of time.
I'm doing an annual planning session tomorrow. And I'm literally doing the same thing. I'm going to show them my 2010 business plan, which I wrote in 2009 before I started the actual business side of things, and just the way I was thinking. And, I forecast at that time, like 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 years. So the 10 year was 2020. And I think I broke all of this stuff like way before that, Yeah. But I would tell you, like, it was one lead source for like 3 years straight. It was me working a single lead source on a single script, which was on one page. I would generate a lead. I would call the lead. If they weren't ready to go, they'd go in the CRM. I would call them back in half the time. Those were that ready to go. I would meet them before I showed them homes. I would present a actual buyer presentation. I did that for like almost 3 years, and I sold probably 100 buyer homes in 2.5 years. And then I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So I shifted over to the listing side. I'm like, I've got to crack the code on the listing side. So I hired a buyer agent. He took all the buyers, and he sold like 2 homes before he met me. And he sold 27 homes in his first year, and then went on to sell a whole lot more than that. And then I just cracked the code on the listing side. I got up to like, it wasn't pretty, I will say. I got up to 92 listings. And I've heard you talk about like all of your sort of tactical sales stuff, and I had none of that. I was just like, more than half of them were at completely the wrong price.
Yeah. And giving yourself permission for it to take time. That's why I think that 10, 5, 3, 190 is so helpful, because I think people, again, drastically underestimate what they can accomplish, like, in a decade. And what I wrote down here is like, that was the same was true for me. I did 100 deals one year, Lars, and 75 were expired listings. There's just one lead source, just hammering away at it. And then when that dried up, we had to shift to a different lead source. Right. So I think that's wonderful, dude. So here's what's true for me, man. Like, I'm super appreciative of the platform of EXP, and that it provides me and you to be in proximity to one another. And, I have benefited greatly from that proximity in terms of changes in thinking and like direction. And I know of no other platform that creates an environment so conducive for collaboration than this one. Like I went from someone who, like participated in real estate B school to now we speak on a regular basis. You know what I mean? Like, and how fast that happened and how quick that, could take place because the platform promotes collaboration at such a high level. So again, brother, I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us here today. I think a lot of people are going to get value from this. If people want to connect with you, or if they want to like reach out to you or anything that you're doing, what would be the best place for them to check you out?
I don't really have a call to action. I mean, the podcast, no, actually go into my Facebook group, okay. Real Estate Business Builders. Just jump in there. I'll give you a free copy of my book, and I do a weekly free training in there.
How do you overcome call reluctance? When I first started selling real estate, I didn't really understand the industry that I got into, right? I didn't understand that it was a direct, hardcore sales business, no different than selling books door to door, knives door to door, subscriptions over the phone. And once I got a clear understanding as to what this game was, I was able to dedicate my energy and efforts in areas that produced outsized outcomes, like prospecting on a regular basis, making cold calls, like practicing scripts and dialogues, right? Like learning how to close, learning how to handle objections. What's underneath that is a fundamental mental map, which is that the money's not in the service, the money's in the selling of the service. So what that means is that we all have a license where we can perform a service, but we all don't make the same amount of money. Why is that? Well, some people know how to sell the service better than others. So once I understood that, I started to dedicate all of my time and energy and effort in those areas, which produced very sizable outcomes. So I've been selling real estate for about 16 years. It took me 5 years to get up to 100 transactions, done over 100 deals a year for the last 10, 11 years in a row. I did 200 deals a year twice. I know with certainty that what I'm sharing with you is accurate. And my experience is one of the most valuable things that you can get from a coach, a teacher, or a mentor, whatever name we want to call that, which is really just someone who's produced an outcome that you wish to produce, right? They may be just a little bit farther down the path, is access to the way that they think, because the way that they think allows them to do what they do. So what I'd like to do in this video is share with you my mental maps and how I think about prospecting. The first thing that I think about, right, when I think about cold calling is that it's my job. I know that there's a large kind of segment of our industry that views it as like, oh, this is like this separate thing. And there's those agents that do that. And I'm not one of those agents. And like a salesperson's job is to be in the presence of prospects. And there's two camps, people you know and people you don't know. So if I want to grow and I want to do it fast and quick, I'm going to have to get comfortable speaking to people that I don't know. And that is my job, is to be in the presence of prospects. It is not to do paperwork. It is not to do administrative work. Your job is to sell. A sale takes place once I've spoken to somebody who has a need for my service. Number two is that everything you want in life is going to come to you, for the most part, through the hands of a stranger. Right? So when you sit down and you do a business plan and you put down, you're going to make $200,000 in a year, almost all of your goals and objectives are going to happen because of a stranger, because the stranger has the income that you're after. The stranger has the problem that you're there to solve. The stranger has the network of people who can refer you to other people. I know that as young people, we were taught not to talk to strangers and that it's dangerous and that you shouldn't do that. And I'm here to tell you the opposite is actually true. The third thing that's very true is that these are strangers, guys. Okay, so it would be one thing if you called your best friend and invited them to a birthday party and they were like, no, I don't want to go to that birthday party, bang, and they hung up. These are perfect strangers that you're never going to see again, never going to speak to again for the rest of your life, right? So it's not uncommon after 2,000 homes sold in my career where I'll walk into a room with my wife, Carla, and I'll say something like, hey, I wonder how many people in this room have hung up on me. I wonder how many people in this room have called me a name that my mom didn't give me. And you can talk to them and they'll hang up on you and they'll probably walk right by you and not even know who you are anyway. The next one is that people are really afraid of failing. They're afraid of how they're going to be perceived, of what people would say, and if they'll, get mad at them or think they're silly or stupid or dumb. Here's what I've learned. If you can get 50% of the population to hate your guts, you could become president of the United States. So if you want to do anything big, there's going to be people that don't like it. There will be haters. There will be people who hang up. There will be people who say no. And the difference between rock star top producers who earn the majority of the money in this industry and those who don't is they understand that and they accept it and they embrace it. And then the last one is that I really view this and what's attached to it, I view it as a cash register. And once you can make that connection in your mind, so I think a lot of people, when they look at the phone, what comes up for them is like, I don't know, pain, or what comes up for them is like anguish, like, oh, these people are gonna say no, like this is so difficult, like, because it's really not hard, guys. We're not pushing boulders up a hill, putting on a roof when it's 100 degrees. We're standing in air conditioning and going blah, blah, blah. If we tell ourselves this story, I associate all of those feelings with the phone, and then it dissuades me from doing it. But imagine if you looked at it as an actual register. Imagine if you looked at it that everything you want in life is directly correlated with that activity. You cannot keep me away from it, okay? I will push, pull, like knock people over in order to be able to do it. That's why I didn't miss a day of prospecting for like 10 years, because I knew and understood that this was directly correlated with everything that I want in life. All the trips that I want to take with my family, all the retirement accounts that I want to fund, all of the investment accounts, all of the giving that I want to do, everything is directly correlated with that activity. So if you can make the connection, right, with those mental maps that I just shared with you, you should be able to break through this reluctance in cold calling and start to create, right, the life that you deserve for yourself and for the people that love and care about you and that are dependent on you. My job is to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. What's going on, guys? Today, we're going to be going over 4 key phrases that you can be utilizing when having conversations with prospective clients that can help you to get clarity with regards to if this individual has a need that you can service, right? And the faster that you can get clear on that, the more people that you can help, and the more people that you can help, the better service they're going to get, because you're a dedicated professional and you'll be, compensated for helping them. So my name is Novello. If you're new to this content, I've been a real estate agent over the last 16 years. I've sold over 100 homes a year consecutively for the last decade. I did over 200 deals a year twice, and I have a coaching company where we coach some of the top agents throughout the United States and internationally. I've shared these techniques and strategies with agents all across the country, and they get fantastic results. I want to share them with you as well. The first phrase that we're going to utilize is, my job is to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. So if somebody brings up like, hey, like I'm thinking about maybe selling my property, that's awesome. My job's to help you. It's never to talk you into do anything. I guess I'm curious. And then we start asking some probing questions with regards to underneath what their goals and objectives are. It lets the individual know that you're unattached to the outcome. It's a completely different dynamic, and it dramatically increases the probability that they're going to open up and share what their goals and objectives are and what their real motivation is, and then you can determine if you can actually help or assist them in some way. The second key phrase is, if you don't mind me asking. So if you don't mind me asking, your home's lovely, it's in a great area. Was there any particular reason you were even considering selling it? I recognize that I'm asking, a question that's a little probing. I'm doing it in a respectful manner. So like, if you don't mind me asking, your home's lovely, it's in a great area, I don't need to tell you that. Was there any particular reason you were even considering selling? Third key phrase that you want to utilize is, in terms of what you want, because really that's what's most important. So in terms of what you want, because really that's what's most important, ideally, how soon would you like to make this happen? It's putting the prospective client in its proper position, which is the main event, not you as a real estate agent. And then the fourth key kind of question. So if you had an offer that was very reasonable or acceptable in whatever time frame that you want to give them, 30, 60, 90 days, do you think you would still sell the property, or is your plan to hold on to the property forever? Now, by doing that, when I say, is it to hold on to it forever? It's like we're slamming the door shut on that opportunity. And they may say something like, well, no, we're not going to hold on to it forever. Okay, no problem. So then ideally, in terms of what you want, going back to that other phrase, how soon do you think you'd like to make this sale happen? Well, maybe in the next 9 months or so. Okay, and let's say that we knew that through no fault of your own or mine, if you made a decision to wait, that could end up affecting how much you can get. Would you still want to wait, or would you want to move your timeline up, right? I can continue to keep going down that track because of the answer to that question. It wasn't a definite no. So that question helps me to get to a definite no or a definite yes. If somebody says, well, yeah, I would sell it. Okay, great. Well, just by you saying that demonstrates that we should get together and discuss the options. May I make a suggestion? And then we close for an appointment. Part of the reason why people aren't successful is because of the uncertainty in this business. You can spend hours prospecting. You can spend days, weeks, months prospecting and think you have leads. At the same time, you haven't asked a question that would cause you to get to a definite yes or a definite no. And the okay leads or the not great leads hide the really good and great leads, okay? So my ability to be able to decipher if this is a suspect or a prospect is critically important. Let me ask it this way. If, right, and I'm aware that is an if, you had an offer that was very reasonable, very acceptable in the next maybe 30, 45 days that would allow you to sell this home and make this relocation happen, do you think you would still sell the property, or is your plan to hold on to it forever? So those 4 phrases, if you can incorporate them into your conversations, I promise you it will lead to an increase in appointments. It'll lead to people opening up to you more. So that way you can find out their real motivation and determine if they have a need that you can actually help them with and service. Ultimately lead to, clients getting better service and you being happy because you're helping more people and being compensated appropriately for that help and that skill. I hope this was very helpful and very useful to you. If it is, be sure to share it with someone that you think, could get some benefit, and also be sure to stay tuned for the next video. Don't invest in any assets until you're earning a minimum of $250,000 a year. A lot of agents, when they get involved in selling real estate, their goal and objective is not to stay a real estate agent forever. They're actually interested in becoming an investor, right? So what they'll do is they'll do deals, and from that income that they're earning, they're going to try to take that income and buy assets that pay the money, namely real estate, which is partially correct. One should wait until they're earning a minimum of $250,000 before they even start to look at buying assets. Reason being is if you're making less than that, you're probably not going to be able to purchase assets that would make a meaningful difference, right? So instead, what you should be doing is spending all of your time, energy, effort, and resources pouring into yourself to make yourself more valuable. So where could you be spending time, money, energy, and resources to make yourself more valuable? 4 places. The first one is getting proximity to a coach, trainer, mentor, somebody who can condense decades worth of learning into days, weeks, months, years. Really what you're buying is time. The second thing is spending time, money, energy, and resources on skill acquisition, the skills that are required in order to sell real estate in high volume. Knowing what to say and how to say it, handle the objections that are involved in the real estate conversation, understanding systems, processes, procedures, things of that nature. Again, it's kind of very close to a teacher, coach, mentor. It's probably going to be an individual. It's going to be a relationship. Investing in the S&P 500, not the S&P 500. Third place that I would be spending money is with hiring staff. You can only grow to the proportion that your systems will allow you to, right? So things like listing coordinators, transaction coordinators, VAs, right? And again, what you're doing is buying back time. And then the fourth place that I would be spending money is in personal promotion and advertising, right? So that way you can build a brand, again, that will help you to be able to earn more income. Once you've earned enough income, at minimum of $250,000, then and only then can you pick your head up and start to think about buying assets that pay you money. All day we got Jerry in the house. Lenny LaRocca, nice to see you, brother. Tony, what's up, man? Heard about your closing coming up, way to go. As I mentioned, you can only grow to the proportion that your systems will allow you to. The other thing that's true is that thousandaires think work, millionaires think in systems.
I had an agent shadow me yesterday and she was like, I noticed that your phone's not ringing. It's designed to be that way.
Initially, I was very mad at you because I couldn't get a hold of you on one of your listings. Then I followed you online out of hate. Then I listened to what you were saying and I was like, holy smokes, this is good. I came to 2 more events and now he's partnered with us with EXP. So without systems, you just have a job. That's what we're about here at Lead Builders. We only bring people to you that are world class at what they do. You're looking at the Michael Jordan and the Kobe Bryant of systems. Once you see this, you cannot unsee it.
So I have seen these problems and now we have solutions.
Let's go. Let me see the attendees. Carolina, Chris Camacho. How you doing today, Jose? You doing all right? You looking good with that beard, bro.
It took me a full year to grow it. I'm kidding.
Pretty uniformly across the board, systems is something that, agents really have a challenge with, right? They have a tendency to focus primarily on, generating the business, income generation activities. But I'm also aware that you can only grow to the proportion that your systems will allow you to. In preparation for our time together, I was really thinking this morning about the stages that are involved in selling real estate in high volume, because it is stages. And the first stage is, I need business. I always used to love to be in rooms where they'd be like, let's talk about systems. I'm like, nobody has any business, so let's talk about that. So there's stages. First, we need deals. And we go through this process of ramping up the learning curve to learn what to say and how to say it and how to prospect and get those clients. The second stage is creating systems, processes, and procedures that will allow you to continue to grow and scale. So if you're an agent, and what I see frequently in kind of coaching and consulting agents across the country is where agents plateau at a certain level of production, it's usually because they're lacking a system. And it's usually because they are doing income servicing activities and not income producing activities. And it's usually because they don't have the right person on their team to delegate to, right? To be able to do those things for you. And as I mentioned, you can only grow to the proportion that your systems will allow you to. The other thing that's true is that thousandaires think work, millionaires think in systems. I'm going to say that again, not because you didn't hear me, but because it's true. Thousandaires think in working time, millionaires think in systems. So it is really like our privilege and pleasure to bring to you the absolute best in the business as it pertains to systems. So Kathleen and her team have been assisting agents throughout the country. Top producing agents and teams systematize, create SOPs, which a year and a half ago, I didn't even know what that term meant, standard operating procedures, and hiring as well, staff members to be able to scale and continue to do business in high volume. And I'm also aware is during a time where, there's been a little downshift in the marketplace, volumes down 30% year over year. This is an absolutely amazing time to get systems in place, because for those of us that have been in this business for a while, that once those interest rates come down, it rises all ships. And you don't want to be in a situation where you start doing a bunch more deals and you don't have any systems, and then your life, becomes a frantic, hurried, and ridiculous kind of challenge and mess, right? You don't want to be a public success and a private mess. And the systems will allow you to prevent that from happening. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kathleen and Dr. Laura Sims. So they're going to share with you, their systems magic and how they can help and be of assistance.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Jose. Laura and I are excited to be with all of you because this is our jam and we are totally dedicated to your success and your success with ease as well as profitability. So this is my 11th year in this business, and it has morphed into a number of different varieties, but Cambium is the brand that we took on this year. And this is my 21st year in the real estate industry. As Aaron put in my intro, I started as an assistant to a top producer in San Francisco, and then I became an agent in the city. And when I moved 16 years ago from San Francisco to Vermont to live near my family, I ended up working for one of the top real estate coaches in the country. And in listening to her coach all of these top producers, I heard this problem over and over again, that you cannot reach your goals and your potential if you do not have good systems and proper leverage. And so that was the inspiration to start this journey to be able to bring solutions, because this is my second career. I started in the retail industry in recruiting and training, which explains the highlights in my hair. Right, but all that wisdom is to your benefit. So I have seen these problems and now we have solutions. And so Dr. Laura Sims and I have been working together 7 years and counting. And Laura is trained as a professor. So instructional design is part of the backbone of where she comes from. But now having worked with over 50 teams in systems documentation, plus the hundreds of teams that we service all the time with our coaching, training, and courses, we're able to really be able to spread the wealth between what are all the best tips and tricks that so we can really cut through a lot of that to get to here's the secret sauce that we know, and then we add your secret sauce so that the systems are always yours, but you don't have to actually create them.
And we believe this is the future of real estate teamwork, right? So a traditional model is being challenged, and rightly so. And we're seeing that really we need a revolution in the real estate industry in terms of how we think about systems and operational support as a partner to sales in order to really see businesses get to the next level and thrive in any market.
Yeah, so we're really going to challenge the status quo. And we named the company Cambium. We've spelled it differently, but Cambium, for those of you that love nature and all things organic, is the layer underneath the bark of a tree that provides the tree with oxygen and nutrients so it can grow and thrive throughout its lifetime. And we know that what we do in operations and systems is underneath. It is the infrastructure of your business, which allows you to be able to scale, achieve, and have a life worth living at the level of achievement that you're after. And so with that, we then have our own vision and mission of what are we doing for teams, is to really help create real estate businesses so everyone thrives at work and in their lives. And we'll talk as we go along here about someone that's near and dear to Aaron's heart, which is also someone that is near and dear to my heart. I'm just getting to know him better, which is Lars Hedenborg from Real Estate B School, because he sings the song that I have been singing as well all these years, which is you really want to be able to create a life that doesn't destroy your family and your health. And so hence the vision for us to work with you. And the mission then is to support the teams to establish effective workflow, hire talent, train team members to perform at their best through great coaching and having good systems documentation.
That's right. Drop in the chat, guys, a hands up or a thumbs up if you're interested in not just having a thriving business, but also having a life and not working 70 to 80 hours a week. Who's up for that? Say aye. Drop in the chat. Let me see it.
Yes. Right. And that's possible, right, with systems. And so as your tree grows, trees always need oxygen, sunlight, water. You will always need to nurture your business and nurture your life, particularly if you believe that you are a lifelong learner. Are you someone who always wants to keep peeling away the layers of the onion, taking off the shields of protection you put on to get this far, and now actually live an authentic life that brings value everywhere you go? So having operations and systems as you're just beginning to really bud in your business, having great hiring and training as you're beginning to build a team and have people you can count on. And then what is that support you want for the lifetime of the business and your own lifetime so that everyone on the team in the organization is thriving and getting satisfaction out of the work that they're doing.
And we've seen that these transformations through our working with Kathleen's been in business for she's in her 11th year of this business. And so we're able to see what it's like for people, business owners, to go from single agent with an admin, then adding in their admin, training them and taking it to the next level in terms of what's possible. And so we've been able to walk along them in that journey of growth. And so then we bring that expertise and lessons we've learned with them along the way so that you don't have to, kind of reinvent that wheel.
Yes. And so that you're the salesperson, you are building and have built your skills, but to the level now where this becomes important, even more so than it was as a brand new agent. What would it be like if brand new agents were actually taught about having systems, right? So that's a deeper part of our extended mission that we can make that difference too. But the commodity in here that is finite is time. So when Aaron and I talked about this webinar of doubling your deals with systems, it really comes down to the possibilities of what you can achieve are ever expanding. The finite resource is time. The hours in a day and the hours and minutes in a life, the years in a life, and really having that be something spectacular. So now what you're looking at is all the skill and the habits that you've been building as an agent over the years. Where do you want to spend your time? What is the highest return on investment for that time? And where are you going to flip the hourglass and begin to save time in order to spend it in ways that is the most impactful to you, your family, and your life?
Things were selling. There was tons of buyers knocking on my doors, and now there's nobody. Where are they? It's definitely a roller coaster career that you can have a deal 1 minute going towards a closing, and the next it falls apart for a few $1,000s.
People can confuse luck with the fact that they're good when in fact they're not. Welcome back, Novello Nation, to another episode of the Aaron Novello podcast. We have with us a hustler, a individual who has not only served the community at a really high level in his vocation in law enforcement in various different ways. He also is relatively new to the real estate industry. He's actually on our team, at the Novello Group, and really been producing great outcomes. The one and only Mr. Heath Wagner. I appreciate you taking the time to be with me here today, brother.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure, man. And, you know, the title of this episode is How to Take 15 Listings in Your First 6 Months. So, you know, if you could share with the audience briefly, like what you were doing before, what you're still currently doing, and talk about kind of how you decided to make the transition to be like, you know what, you know, now that I'm kind of completing that stage in my life, I'm interested in this real estate thing.
Yeah. So I've been in law enforcement now for 19 years and kind of on the road to retirement within the next year. And I was looking for a vehicle to kind of catapult me into retirement, you know, kind of pave the way for life after law enforcement, so to say. And, you know, it was brought to my attention, look into real estate, look into investing. And so I started asking around, and it just so happens that you were kind of previously introduced to me a few years back. And again, it was kind of referred to me to reach out to you again. So beginning of 2022, I actually, we jumped on a call together. And that kind of just got me started in this new path. And I couldn't be more excited and enthusiastic of where it's taken me.
Yeah, that's awesome, brother. Yeah, so we were actually kind of on the same travel baseball team for our sons, right? So we had spent time together, kind of been around each other. And then when you were getting into real estate, there was also another individual, I think his name was Kevin. And you were like, hey, man, I'm thinking of real estate. And Kevin's like, you should talk to Aaron. And then you reached out and then we had that conversation and that was awesome. So, and you also made the decision pretty early to not only, you know, partner with me at EXP, but then you were like, hey, man, like I'd really love to have the opportunity to be on the team. So talk a little bit about what caused you to come to that conclusion, because I think a lot of agents, you know, perhaps are newer and they're like, well, you know, should I just do this on my own? Should I maybe be on a team? So what caused you to make that decision?
Yeah, great question. When I first started, it was quite overwhelming. You know, coming from a background in a career that I've done for so long, I lacked the experience and the knowledge base to be successful in this. And coming into it, I was taking in a lot of knowledge and taking in a lot of information at once. And again, it was overwhelming. So, you know, I think the benefit of reaching out to you and aligning yourself, you know, aligning myself with someone who's already been extremely successful in this industry and who's also kind of made their name of coaching other real estate agents. And, you know, you had so much value to offer right away. And I kind of found that initially when I was kind of deciding whether to join a team or not, I found it to be pretty overwhelming, you know, kind of working a full-time job at the same time in law enforcement still, and trying to prospect for clients, understand the fundamentals of real estate and the necessity of just the way things are supposed to work in this business was extremely difficult for me. So once I was able to really connect with someone personally and have these conversations on that one-on-one instruction and kind of have that person that I can rely on to go to as a source for all kinds of information in this business, it was basically a no-brainer. It was something I needed to do.
That's awesome, bro. And I'm equally as appreciative of you, for sure. So, and I'm aware that of a couple things. The first one is you mentioned it kind of in passing, but I want everybody listening to really hear you, that you actually still are full-time employed in law enforcement. So this idea of taking 15 listings in 6 months, you've been able to accomplish that while also having a full-time job, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And I think that's a direct kind of, you know, testament to what you're saying in terms of proximity being power and really dramatically shrinking the learning curve. So I wrote down that you have certain qualities and characteristics like the hustle, persistence. I know you want to be like exceptionally really good at, you know, this, anything that you do really, and this kind of chosen profession. And, you really asked yourself and said like, okay, well, how can I dramatically shorten the learning curve? Because to your point, it's super overwhelming. There's all these moving parts. You also have a lot of people that are yelling at you, trying to tell you like, what's the way, right? You should do this. No, you shouldn't do that. You should do this, right? So getting a clear, accurate assessment of what you should actually be doing and what you should be focused on has made a tremendous difference for you, right? Because people can find themselves going down a rabbit hole and then realizing like, oh, this isn't an accurate assessment of reality. And the way I describe it to people, it's kind of like if you were on a, I don't know, like a trip somewhere. It's like, yeah, you could try to backpack it and figure it out yourself. At the same time, you'll probably get lost. You'll probably have like some weird kind of, experiences, maybe ones that are dangerous, versus if you had a guide. And that would be, make the experience much more enjoyable, right? Now, I guess I'm curious too, though, because I know a lot of the hesitation for people about kind of being on a team would be kind of splits and like money, right? So talk a little bit about like value and why you perceive like, yeah, there are splits involved, but, at the same time, I perceive what I'm receiving in return to be equally, if not more valuable.
Right. Yeah. It goes to, a common phrase in real estate, return on investment. So I'm making an investment in my career by aligning myself with someone who's already done what I want to do. I know for a fact that I wouldn't have done this volume of business in the last 6 months on my own. Most realtors out of the gate are doing 2-3 deals a year, and that's maybe on their own. So for me to be this successful is only showing me that, the sky's the limit in the future. So I just need to keep on the same path I am, align myself with yourself and other successful people with EXP, and just follow what you've done. And that's just going to get me where I want to be.
And I wrote down a few things. Like one is short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. Our tendency is to, we're really wired that way to think in short term versus long term. That's why, we live in a country, it's one of the richest in the world. And a lot of people end up at the end of their working life, subsistence on the government or the kindness of family members or strangers, right? Where they're not thinking long term as far as like investing and things of that nature. You also use the word investing. And then, I also wrote down that 80% of anybody who's a new licensee is gone within a year. And that's just the statistic, right? Between 70 and 80% of people who get their license within a year, they're doing something else, right? Because the learning curve is massive. So if there's a way that I can condense that learning curve, that dramatically increases the probability that I'll still kind of be in this game moving forward. Now, I'm also curious because you're somebody who you've accomplished a lot in a different area of life. So in law enforcement, I know you've been, kind of stellar, top of what you do. You were also SWAT, right? So that's like the elite force, of law enforcement. So my hallucination is a lot of people who perhaps had done that in their life, there may be like an ego there, like, I got this, like I can figure this shit out. Like, it's just me, you know what I mean? I'll do it myself. So talk a little bit about that. Cause I don't get that from you at all, like at all. You're more like, hey man, I have this awareness that there's stuff that and I don't, and I'm just interested in learning from you. And I don't get any like puffery. I don't get any like, peacocking or anything like that.
What's funny is I'm make a quick correction to that. How you may imagine that a lot of SWAT guys are like, oh, I got this, I'm on my own. I can do this. Believe it or not, SWAT is a team effort. I wouldn't be successful in SWAT or in police work on my own. You need that team behind you. There's 20 something other guys on the team that add to your success, and one guy alone isn't going to be able to do it. So it's more of a team event, and that's how I looked at real estate. I looked at it as, I want to be part of a team, and I wanted to be part of a successful team, because there's other teams out there, and there's other avenues that I could have taken. And when you align yourself with someone at the top of their game and someone that you trust and even have a somewhat of a personal relationship with, it makes that team aspect that much greater.
High energy equals high income.
I'm going to say that to you again because I want you to be clear on it. High energy equals high income. I want everybody to be clear on something. This is